Dould by speech therapists from Johns Hopkins, behavioral experts from Stanford, physical therapists who'd written textbooks on cerebral palsy recovery, 15 professionals, 15 failures. His son Daniel still wouldn't speak, still wouldn't walk, still sat in that wheelchair, staring at nothing, trapped somewhere Marcus couldn't reach. So he stopped trying. What else could he do? Then a housekeeper walked into his mansion, 27 years old, no medical training, no fancy degrees, just a woman with patient hands and a broken past who looked at his son and saw something no one else did. And what she did next would bring a billionaire to his knees. Marcus Whitfield used to have everything. A tech empire worth $3 billion. A beautiful wife named Catherine who filled every room with warmth. A son who babbled and laughed and reached for his father's face with tiny, perfect hands. Then tragedy struck. Twice. 3 years ago, Catherine died during a routine surgery. A freak complication. One moment, she was kissing Marcus goodbye before a simple procedure. The next, she was gone. No warning. No goodbye. Just a sterile hospital room and a doctor saying, "We did everything we could." Marcus held her hand until it went cold. Then he walked out to his car and sat in the parking lot for 6 hours, unable to move, unable to process that the center of his world had just vanished. Daniel was only 2 years old, too young to understand why Mommy stopped coming home. Marcus threw himself into being both parents. He cut his work hours, hired the best nannies, read every parenting book he could find. He was going to be enough for Daniel. He had to be. Then, 11 months ago, came the second blow. The accident. Marcus was driving Daniel to preschool, running late, distracted. A conference call he shouldn't have taken. His eyes on the phone instead of the road for just 3 seconds. 3 seconds. That's all it took. The SUV that ran the red light hit the passenger side. Daniel sighed. The sound of metal crushing, glass shattering, his son's scream. Then silence. Marcus walked away with a broken arm. Daniel didn't walk away at all. Severe spinal trauma. The doctors used words like extensive damage and permanent disability and unlikely to regain function. His legs, they said, would probably never work again. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that Daniel stopped talking. Completely. Not a word. Not a sound. He just stared with those big brown eyes that used to light up when Marcus came home. Now, they were empty. Distant. Like Daniel had gone somewhere far away and didn't know how to come back. The doctors couldn't explain it. No brain damage from the accident. No physical reason for the mutism. Just trauma, they said. Severe psychological trauma. Give it time. Marcus gave it time. 11 months. Daniel didn't speak. Didn't look at people. Didn't cry or laugh or show any emotion at all. He sat in his wheelchair by the window of their Connecticut mansion, staring out at the gardens, unreachable. Marcus hired specialists. Speech pathologists who tried every technique in their arsenal. Child psychologists who used play therapy, art therapy, music therapy. Neurologists who ran test after test, searching for something they'd missed. Nothing worked. Therapist number 7 lasted 3 weeks before admitting defeat. "Mr. Whitfield, I've been doing this for 20 years. Some children, sometimes the trauma is just too deep. He may never speak again." Marcus fired him on the spot. Therapist number 8 suggested residential treatment. A facility that specializes in cases like this. Round-the-clock care. The best chance he has. Marcus threw her out of his house. He wasn't sending his son away. Catherine would never forgive him. By therapist number 15, Marcus had spent over $2 million. Flown in experts from Europe. Purchased equipment that required its own room to house. Communication devices. Sensory therapy tools. Specialized wheelchairs with technology that was supposed to encourage engagement. Nothing changed. Daniel sat by that window. Silent. Unreachable. Alone in a prison Marcus couldn't unlock no matter how much money he threw at it. And slowly, over 11 months of watching his son disappear, Marcus started to accept what he'd been refusing to believe. Daniel was gone. Not dead, but gone. Locked away somewhere Marcus couldn't follow. The doctors were right. Some damage couldn't be fixed. Some children didn't come back. Marcus stopped calling specialists. Stopped researching new treatments. Stopped hoping. Hope, he learned, was just another word for setting yourself up for more pain. He buried that hope right next to Catherine. The Whitfield mansion sat on 18 acres in Greenwich, Connecticut. 42 rooms, indoor pool, private movie theater, tennis courts Catherine had insisted on even though neither of them played. She'd loved this house, called it their forever home, the place where Daniel would grow up, where they'd have more children, where they'd grow old together. Now it felt like a mausoleum. Beautiful, expensive, dead. Marcus walked through those 42 rooms like a ghost. His office, his bedroom, the kitchen when he remembered to eat. Everything else was just space he paid people to maintain. The nursery Catherine had decorated, painted herself while 7 months pregnant, humming the entire time, sat untouched. Pale blue walls, a mural of sailing ships she'd sketched from a children's book. The crib still made with fresh sheets, waiting for a baby who'd outgrown it years ago. Marcus hadn't opened that door in 18 months. The staff moved through the house like shadows. Mrs. Chun, the housekeeper who'd been with them for 8 years, remembered when laughter echoed through these halls, when Catherine would dance in the kitchen, when little Daniel would chase the cat through the corridors, shrieking with joy. Now everyone spoke in whispers, walked quietly, tried not to remind anyone they were there. The house had become a monument to loss, to everything Marcus had failed to protect. He stood in his office every morning, coffee growing cold in his hands, watching security monitors he'd installed after the caregivers started failing him. Cameras in every room, every hallway, every corner. He told himself it was about safety, about protecting Daniel from negligence or worse. But really, it was about control. Control was all Marcus had left. If he couldn't fix his son, at least he could monitor every moment. Watch for the next disaster before it struck. The monitors showed Daniel in the therapy room, sitting in his wheelchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows, morning sun streaming across his small frame. 5 years old now, small for his age, dark hair falling into his eyes, staring, always staring at something Marcus couldn't see. The new physical therapist, Marcus couldn't remember his name, they all blurred together now, was moving Daniel's legs through range of motion exercises. Mechanical, clinical. Daniel's face showed nothing. No discomfort, no awareness, just that blank stare. Marcus closed the monitor feed. He couldn't watch anymore. Then came the caregivers. 15 therapists hadn't been the only ones. Between the specialists, Marcus had hired caregivers, people to be with Daniel when Marcus was working, when he couldn't bear to sit in that room and watch his son stare at nothing. The first nanny quit after 3 weeks. "It's too sad," she told Mrs. Chun. "I can't watch that little boy disappear and do nothing about it." The second lasted a month before Marcus fired her. She'd spent more time on her phone than with Daniel. When Marcus reviewed the security footage, he'd seen her scrolling through social media while Daniel sat alone, ignored. The third seemed perfect. Credentials from Oxford, experience with disabled children, warm smile, professional demeanor, until Marcus discovered she'd been selling information to tabloids. Tragic tech billionaire's son remains unresponsive. Marcus Whitfield's disabled child shows no signs of improvement. Sources say the boy may never recover. She'd made $8,000 leaking his son's medical details. Marcus paid her $250,000 to sign an NDA and get out of his life. After that, something broke inside him. The fourth caregiver stole jewelry. $500,000 in Catherine's wedding set, bracelets, earrings Marcus had been saving for Daniel to give to his future wife someday. The fifth accessed Marcus's financial accounts. Tried to transfer money before the fraud alerts caught it. The sixth lasted 2 days. Marcus watched her on the cameras, saw her roughly handle Daniel when she thought no one was looking, yanking his arm, shoving his wheelchair without warning. She was gone within the hour. 7 through 11 blurred together. Each one came with smiles and references and promises. Each one left Marcus's trust bleeding out a little more. Number 12 was the worst. She seemed different, older, maternal. She'd sit with Daniel for hours, reading to him even though he never responded. She didn't rush through her duties or check her phone constantly. For 6 weeks, Marcus almost believed she actually cared. Then she started increasing Daniel's medications without authorization. Marcus discovered it by accident. Daniel seemed more sedated than usual, more vacant. Marcus checked the medication log and found discrepancies. Extra doses, pills missing from bottles. When confronted, she'd shrugged. He's calmer this way, easier to manage. I thought you'd want him comfortable. She was drugging his son into deeper silence because it made her job easier. Marcus fired her on the spot. Then he locked himself in his office and destroyed everything within reach. Computer monitor, lamp, picture frames. He threw a chair through the window and watched glass rain down on the terrace below. Mrs. Chun found him 2 hours later, sitting in the wreckage, hands bleeding, staring at nothing. Just like Daniel. After number 12, Marcus stopped hiring caregivers. The physical therapist came 3 times a week. Mrs. Chun checked on Daniel between sessions. A night nurse handled his bedtime routine. That was enough. It had to be, because Marcus couldn't risk another betrayal. Couldn't watch another person pretend to care before revealing they were just after his money or selling his tragedy for profit. Trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. So Marcus installed more cameras, enhanced the security system, ran background checks that went back 3 generations. He watched footage late at night, rewinding, zooming, searching for the lie he knew was coming. Because it was always coming. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had an angle. Everyone eventually showed their true face. Marcus had learned this lesson 12 times over. He wasn't going to forget it again. Control became his only protection. If he couldn't save his son, at least he could prevent anyone else from hurting him. The mansion became a fortress, beautiful on the outside, locked down and monitored within, just like Marcus's heart. And Daniel sat by his window, silent and still, while his father watched him through screens, unable to bridge the distance between them. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. That's where things stood when Elena Rodriguez walked through Marcus Whitfield's front door on a cold Tuesday morning in November. She wasn't supposed to be there. Marcus had stopped hiring people to work directly with Daniel. The position Elena applied for was simple: household staff, deep cleaning, laundry, basic maintenance, nothing that required interaction with his son. Mrs. Chun had conducted the interview. Marcus barely glanced at the file. Elena Rodriguez, 27 years old, born in Queens, no college degree, previous employment, home health aide, house cleaner, part-time waitress, currently studying for her CNA certification at night while working 2 jobs. Nothing impressive, nothing concerning, just another person who needed work. Mrs. Chun hired her for $22 an hour, 3 days a week, Wednesdays, Fridays, Sundays. Marcus signed off on the paperwork without meeting her. He had no idea that this unremarkable woman with tired eyes and calloused hands was about to shatter everything he thought he knew about his son. About hope, about miracles, about himself. Elena showed up for her first day at 7 in the morning. Mrs. Chun gave her the tour, showed her the supply closets, the cleaning schedule, the rooms that needed attention. The master bedroom, library, guest suites, Mrs. Chun explained. The therapy room is off limits. Mr. Whitfield's son is in there during the day. You don't need to clean it. Elena nodded, asked no questions, just started working. Marcus watched her on the monitors. Not suspicious yet, just habitual. He watched everyone. She moved through the house efficiently, dusting, vacuuming, scrubbing bathrooms. Nothing remarkable. She didn't snoop, didn't use her phone, didn't slack off, just worked. Around noon, Elena passed by the therapy room. The door was open. Marcus watched her pause, glance inside. Daniel was there, in his wheelchair by the window. The physical therapist had left an hour ago. Daniel was alone, staring out at the barren November garden. Elena stood in the doorway for a long moment, just looking. Then she moved on, continued down the hallway to the next room on her list. Marcus relaxed slightly. Good. She understood boundaries. But on Friday, when Elena came for her second day, something changed. She was cleaning the hallway outside the therapy room again. Marcus watched her work her way down from the far end, methodical and thorough. When she reached the therapy room door, open again, Daniel inside, she paused, set down her supplies, and knocked softly on the doorframe. Marcus leaned toward his monitor, volume turned up. "Hello," Elena said quietly, not stepping inside, just standing at the threshold. "My name's Elena. I work here now. I clean the house." Silence. Daniel didn't turn, didn't acknowledge her at all. Elena didn't seem bothered. "I just wanted to introduce myself. I'll be around on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. If you ever need anything, you can let me know." She waited. 5 seconds. 10. Daniel stared out the window. Elena nodded, like he'd responded. "Okay. Well, it's nice to meet you." She picked up her supplies and moved on. Marcus sat back in his chair, frowning. That was odd. Why introduce herself to a child who couldn't respond, who probably didn't even register her presence? But he didn't stop her. She hadn't broken any rules, hadn't touched Daniel, or tried to engage beyond a simple greeting. It was harmless. On Sunday, Elena did it again. Knocked on the doorframe. "Hi, Daniel. It's Elena. I'm here cleaning again. Beautiful day outside, even though it's cold." No response. "I'll leave you to your peace," Elena said gently. And she left. Marcus watched this ritual repeat over the next 2 weeks. Every shift, Elena would pause at the therapy room door. Knock softly. Say hello. Make a small observation about the weather or the day. Never pushing. Never waiting for a response she knew wouldn't come. Then she'd leave. It was strange. Pointless. But also harmless. And something about it bothered Marcus, though he couldn't articulate why. Maybe because Elena talked to Daniel like he was a person. Not a tragedy. Not a disabled child. Just a person worth greeting. No one else did that. The therapist talked to Daniel. Gave him instructions. Move his body through exercises. Professional. Clinical. But they didn't talk to him. Didn't treat him like someone who might actually want to hear a friendly voice. Elena did. And on the 3rd week, something changed. Elena was cleaning the hallway. She paused at the therapy room door like always. Knocked. "Hi, Daniel. It's Elena again." But this time, she didn't immediately leave. She stood there, looking at him. Then she said, "You know what? I had a little brother who used to sit by windows like that." Marcus's attention sharpened. His name was Miguel. Elena continued, her voice soft. Gentle. He had cerebral palsy. Couldn't walk. Couldn't talk much. He'd sit by our apartment window for hours, watching kids play basketball in the court below. She paused. It made him sad sometimes, watching other kids do things his body wouldn't let him do. But you know what helped? When someone would just sit with him, not try to fix anything, just be there. Elena was quiet for a moment. "I don't know if you feel like that, Daniel. I don't know what you're thinking when you look out that window. But if you ever want company, someone to just sit and be quiet with you, I'm around." She picked up her supplies. "See you Wednesday." And she left. Marcus sat frozen at his desk. Miguel. Cerebral palsy. This woman had a brother with a disability. She understood what it was like to watch someone struggle, to feel helpless. That explained the greetings, the gentle tone, the way she talked to Daniel like he mattered. She wasn't being professional. She was being human. Marcus didn't know what to do with that information. Wednesday came. Elena showed up, worked her way through the house. When she reached the therapy room, she knocked. "Hi, Daniel. It's me again." Elena. This time, she didn't just stand in the doorway. She stepped inside. Marcus's hand moved toward his phone, ready to call Mrs. Chun, to stop this before it went too far. But Elena didn't approach Daniel, didn't touch him. She just walked over to the bookshelf on the far side of the room and started dusting it. "I hope you don't mind," she said quietly, working. "This shelf was on my list today. I'll be quick. Won't disturb you." Daniel didn't react, but his eyes shifted slightly, just a fraction, aware of her presence. Elena dusted slowly, carefully, and as she worked, she hummed. Soft, melodic, something Marcus didn't recognize. A lullaby maybe, or a hymn. It filled the room with warmth, with sound that wasn't clinical or mechanical, just human. Marcus watched, transfixed, as Elena finished the bookshelf. She moved to the windowsill next, wiping it down gently. Still humming. Daniel's head turned, just slightly, toward the sound. Marcus's breath caught. Elena didn't acknowledge it, didn't make a big deal, just kept humming, kept working. When she finished, she gathered her supplies. "All done. Thanks for letting me clean in here, Daniel." I'll see you Friday. She left. Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the monitor. Daniel had moved, had turned his head toward Elena's humming. It was small, barely noticeable, but in 11 months of silence and stillness, it was everything. Marcus rewound the footage, watched it again, and again, Daniel's head turning, following the sound, responding. For the first time since the accident, Daniel had responded to something. Not to a therapist with a PhD, not to expensive equipment or specialized techniques. To a housekeeper humming while she dusted. Marcus closed his laptop, ran his hands through his hair. His chest felt tight. This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of hope he'd sworn not to feel again. The kind that would destroy him when it inevitably led nowhere. He should fire Elena. Right now. Before this went any further. Before she became another person who promised improvement and delivered heartbreak. But Marcus didn't pick up the phone. Because somewhere deep in his chest, in a place he thought had died with Catherine, something stirred. Not hope exactly, but something close. Something like possibility. And as much as it terrified him, Marcus couldn't bring himself to kill it. Not yet. Marcus couldn't stop watching. Every night, after the house went dark, he sat in his office with the glow of monitors painting shadows across his face. He told himself it was caution, responsibility, a father protecting his child from another inevitable betrayal. But that wasn't true anymore. He was watching because something was happening, something he didn't understand, something that terrified and mesmerized him in equal measure. Week 4. Elena had stopped following the boundaries entirely. It started small. The humming became singing. Soft words in Spanish Marcus didn't understand but somehow felt. She'd dust the therapy room slower now, taking 30 minutes instead of 10. Always talking to Daniel. Never demanding responses. Just sharing space. My brother Miguel loved this song, she'd say. My abuela used to sing it when he couldn't sleep. Daniel's eyes would track her movement across the room. Then Elena brought a book. Marcus watched through the camera as she pulled a worn paperback from her bag. I hope you don't mind, she said, settling into the chair across from Daniel's wheelchair. I have 20 minutes before my next room. Thought I'd read while I rest my feet. She opened the book, started reading aloud. Not a children's story, just a novel. Something about a man searching for his lost dog across the country. Daniel stared out the window, but his head was angled slightly toward her voice. Elena read for exactly 20 minutes. Then she stood, marked her page, and smiled at Daniel. We'll find out tomorrow if he makes it to Colorado. I think he will. See you Friday, Daniel. Friday came. Elena read the next chapter. 20 minutes. Calm. Unhurried. Marcus watched Daniel's face. Something was different. The blank stare had softened. His eyes weren't quite as distant. On Sunday, Elena did something that made Marcus reach for his phone. She moved Daniel's wheelchair. Not far, just 6 feet. Away from the window, facing the center of the room where she sat cross-legged on the floor. I want to try something, Elena said gently. Just for a few minutes. Then I'll move you back. I promise. She held Daniel's hand. Is that okay? Silence. But Daniel didn't pull away. Elena began moving his arms. Slowly, rhythmically, gentle exercises the physical therapist never did. She counted softly in Spanish. Uno, dos, tres. Then his legs, bending at the knee, extending, over and over. Your muscles remember, Daniel, she whispered. They just need reminding. Marcus watched, finger hovering over Mrs. Chen's number. This wasn't her job. This was inappropriate. This was, Daniel smiled. Small, barely there, but real. Marcus's phone slipped from his hand. Elena saw it too. Her face broke into the widest smile. There you are, she said softly. I knew you were in there. She kept moving his legs. Patient, consistent. And she started singing again. That Spanish lullaby. Daniel's smile stayed. Marcus sat frozen at his desk. His son, his unreachable, broken son, was smiling. For the first time in 11 months. Because a housekeeper making $22 an hour refused to give up on him. The changes accelerated. Week 5. Elena brought picture cards. Simple images. A dog. A tree. The sun. Can you point to the dog? She'd ask. Nothing at first. But she'd wait. Patient. Never frustrated. On the third try, Daniel's finger twitched, moved slightly toward the card. Yes, Elena breathed. That's it, Daniel. Show me. His finger touched the dog. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You did it. Oh my God, you did it. Week 6. She brought blocks. Stacked them in front of him. Knock them down, she said. Show me you can. Daniel's hand lifted from his armrest. Slowly, trembling, moved forward, knocked the tower over. Blocks scattered across the floor. Elena laughed. A sound so pure, so joyful it filled the entire room. Again, she said, rebuilding. Do it again. Daniel did. Again and again. Marcus watched it all. Hours of footage. He stopped working, stopped sleeping. Just watched this woman bring his son back to life through patience and belief. He researched her methods online, found articles about neuroplasticity, motor pattern training, the importance of emotional connection in trauma recovery. Everything Elena was doing had scientific backing, real evidence. The therapist could have been doing this all along, but they'd given up, accepted the prognosis. Stopped trying. Elena never stopped. Week 7. Marcus was reviewing morning footage when he saw something that made his breath catch. Elena was sitting with Daniel. She just finished the leg exercises. She stood up, walked toward the door, paused, turned back. Daniel, she said softly, what if you try to stand? Marcus's heart stopped. I know what the doctors said, Elena continued, but your spine wasn't severed. It was damaged, and you're 5 years old. Your body is still growing, still healing. What if they were wrong? She walked back, knelt in front of his wheelchair. Will you try? For me? Daniel looked at her. Really looked. Eye contact. Clear and present. Then he gripped the armrests. Marcus leaned toward the screen. Daniel pushed. His arms trembled. His face twisted with effort. Nothing happened. That's okay, Elena said. Try again tomorrow, and the day after, until it works. But Daniel didn't stop. He pushed harder. His legs twitched. Elena's hands flew to her mouth. Daniel pushed again. Harder. Straining. And then he stood, shaking, wobbling, his legs barely holding him, but upright, standing. Oh my God, Elena shrieked. Daniel, you're standing. She burst into tears, hands over her face, sobbing. Daniel stood for 5 seconds. Then his legs gave out. Elena caught him, pulled him against her chest. You did it. You did it. I knew you could. I knew it. Marcus sat at his desk, staring at the screen. His paralyzed son had just stood. The doctor said impossible. Said never. Said permanent. But there he was, standing. Marcus's hands shook. His chest cracked open. Tears poured down his face. 11 months. 15 specialists. $2 million. And a housekeeper had just accomplished the impossible. Marcus couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. He had to see this. Had to witness it in person. He stood up on shaking legs. Left his office. Walked down the hallway toward the therapy room. Each step felt heavier than the last. Because if this was real, if Daniel could actually stand, then Marcus had wasted 11 months, had given up on his son, had accepted defeat when he should have been fighting. The therapy room door was closed now. Marcus pressed his ear against it. Silence. He opened the door slowly. Elena was on the floor with Daniel. She'd moved him from his wheelchair. He sat facing her, legs stretched out. She was crying. Still, tears streaming down her face. You're so strong, she whispered. So much stronger than anyone knows. Daniel looked at her. And then, thank you. 2 words. Broken. Slurred. But clear. Elena's sob caught in her throat. What? Thank you, Daniel said again. Louder. Thank you. He was speaking. Marcus's knees buckled. He grabbed the door frame to keep from falling. Both of them looked up. Elena's face went white. Mr. Whitfield, but Marcus couldn't speak, could barely see through the tears. His son, his silent, paralyzed son, was standing, was speaking. Marcus fell to his knees, crawled across the floor to where they sat. Daniel, his voice broke. Daniel, baby. Daniel looked at his father and smiled. Hi, Daddy. Marcus pulled his son into his arms, held him so tight, buried his face in Daniel's hair and sobbed. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. I gave up on you. I stopped believing. It's okay, Daddy. But it wasn't okay. Marcus had spent 11 months watching his son through screens instead of holding him, had hired strangers instead of being present, had buried hope instead of fighting for miracles. And this woman, this stranger, had seen what he'd been too broken to see. That Daniel was still there, still fighting, still waiting for someone to believe. Elena quietly stood up, started to leave. Marcus grabbed her hand. "Stay, please." She nodded, tears still falling. "Ow," Marcus whispered. "How did you know?" Elena knelt beside them. "I didn't know, Mr. Whitfield. I just believed, because my brother Miguel, everyone gave up on him too. Said he'd never improve, never have a meaningful life." She paused. "But he did. He graduated high school, got a job, found love, not because his body healed perfectly, but because someone refused to accept impossible." Marcus looked at her. This woman who'd saved his son for $22 an hour. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "Just be here," Elena said simply. "Be present. That's all he needs." If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. 6 months later, the Whitfield mansion didn't feel like a tomb anymore. Windows stayed open. Music played. Laughter, real, joyful laughter, echoed through halls that had been silent for too long. Daniel could walk now. Not perfectly. He still used his wheelchair when tired. But he could stand, could take steps, could move through the world in ways the doctors said would never happen. And he talked. Full sentences. Constant questions. Stories about his dreams. About his mother. About everything he'd been thinking during those 11 months of silence. "I could always hear you, Daddy," he told Marcus one night at bedtime. "I just couldn't answer. It was like being stuck underwater. I could see everyone, but I couldn't reach them." Marcus held his son tighter. "I should have tried harder to reach you." "Elena reached me," Daniel said simply. Yes, she had. Elena wasn't the housekeeper anymore. Marcus had offered her a position as Daniel's full-time companion. Salary, benefits, her own suite in the mansion. She cried when he asked. "I'd be honored." Now she was family. The person Daniel ran to when he needed comfort. The person who sat with him during physical therapy. Who celebrated every small victory. Marcus had changed too. He'd restructured his entire life. Worked from home 4 days a week. Actually showed up for bedtime. For meals. For the moments that mattered. He'd started therapy himself. Processing the guilt. The grief. The fear that had paralyzed him as completely as Daniel's accident had paralyzed his son. One evening, Marcus found Elena in the garden with Daniel. They were planting sunflowers. Catherine's favorite. "Mom loved these," Daniel said, patting dirt around a seed. "I know," Marcus said, kneeling beside them. "She planted them every spring." "Do you think she knows?" Daniel asked. "That I can walk now? That I'm talking?" Marcus's throat tightened. "Yes, buddy. I think she knows. I think she's been watching the whole time." Elena caught his eye, smiled softly. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, Marcus found Elena in the kitchen, making tea. "I've been meaning to ask you something," he said. She looked up. "Why did you keep trying? When everyone else gave up, when I gave up, why didn't you?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "Because giving up on someone doesn't protect you from pain, Mr. Whitfield. It just adds guilt to grief." She poured 2 cups of tea. "And because I know what it's like to be the person everyone stops believing in. Miguel taught me that the greatest gift you can give someone isn't fixing them. It's seeing them, really seeing them. Not their disability, not their diagnosis. Just them." Marcus nodded. "Understanding." "Thank you," he said, "for seeing my son when I couldn't." "You see him now," Elena said gently. "That's what matters." Upstairs, Daniel stirred in his sleep. Marcus heard it through the baby monitor he still kept on his nightstand. He stood up. "I should check on him." "Mr. Whitfield?" Elena called. He turned. "You're a good father. You just forgot for a while. But you remembered. That's what counts." Marcus felt tears burn his eyes. "I almost lost him. But you didn't. You're both still here. Still fighting. Still healing." She smiled. "That's not failure. That's grace." 2 years later, Marcus stood in his office. But he wasn't watching security monitors anymore. He was watching through the window as Daniel ran across the back lawn. Actually ran. Chasing a soccer ball with the physical therapist who'd told him 3 times a week became his friend. Elena sat on the garden bench, laughing, cheering him on. The doctors still couldn't explain it. Called it a miracle. Spontaneous recovery. Neuroplasticity they didn't fully understand. Marcus called it what it was. Love. Patience. Someone who refused to accept impossible. His phone buzzed. A text from Daniel's school. Daniel did amazing in his presentation today. You should be so proud. Marcus smiled. Type back. I am. Every single day. He looked at the photo on his desk. Catherine, 8 months pregnant, glowing with hope. We did it, he whispered. Our boy is okay. He's more than okay. The doorbell rang. Marcus heard Elena answer it. Then Daniel's voice excited. Dad, come see. The sunflowers bloomed. Marcus left his office. Walked downstairs. Out to the garden where Elena and Daniel stood beside 6-foot-tall sunflowers. Bright, beautiful, alive. Catherine's flowers. She sent them, Daniel said confidently, to tell us she's happy. Marcus knelt beside his son. I think you're right. Daniel threw his arms around his father's neck. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, buddy. So much. Elena stood back, giving them space. But Marcus reached out, pulled her into the hug. Thank you, he said, for everything. You're welcome, she whispered. Both of you. They stood there in the garden, surrounded by Catherine's sunflowers, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt complete. Not because everything was perfect. Daniel still had challenges, still had bad days, still needed therapy and support. But they were together, present, fighting side by side. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.